Hi, I'm Mikel, and this is Warrior Life. Maybe you've been in a battle as I have been a great majority of my life. Abused as a child, marrying for 27 years, abused during that entire 27 years. And like me, you are tired of being suppressed, oppressed, beat up and bruised, and left with feeling that you have no value, no voice. For me, I knew that I needed to be in the winning army, the winning team. And I needed a commander who's never lost a battle, who is the warrior of warriors, and in this case, the Lord of Lords. And I think you know who I'm talking about. You know, with God's army, we always have enough strength. It says in His Word, we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength, and that all things are possible for those who believe. And I am praying that today you will find your strength to come out of that place of abuse, as I was in, and to find your warrior that's in here, and to fight like you've never fought before, because you have value, you have worth. And you don't feel that way. In fact, most abused victims feel very isolated, very alone, and they're made to be isolated. The abuser always wants to isolate you because he doesn't want anyone knowing your story. But it's time to tell your story. And it's time to hear stories of those who have come through difficult situations. If you haven't seen this channel before, and you're a victim of abuse, or you know someone who is, please subscribe or share these videos and like them so that others can see them, or that you can see them as I bring them up each week. And I want to connect with you so that you can hear my story, and I pray come out of your abusive situation way before I did. Because I will tell you, I was a mere shadow of myself after experiencing emotional, verbal, and eventually physical abuse from my ex-husband. You were not made for abuse. You were made by love, and you were made for love. There's a verse in the Bible that says, God is love. Listen, if it doesn't feel good, it's not love. If it feels as though you don't know who you are, it's not love. It's abuse. Being belittled, being overlooked, being put down, being physically beaten. And maybe you were like I was. I had children at home. And there was always that fear that they would be hurt by the abuser. It's time to go. It's time to get out. It's time to make a plan and go forward with that warrior self that you don't even maybe know you are yet, and say no more. No more. Because you and I will eventually not have a life. But we don't want that life to end because of someone's abuse. And you never know. You just never know what you may succumb to, or your children, if you stay. I lived with a covert narcissist for 27 years, who to this very day still causes me issue after issue. But at least I'm not living in the same home with him, and at least my children aren't at risk. There is a way out. But we have to tell our story. We have to let people know so that they can help us. And I want to tell you a story today to encourage you out of 1 Samuel in the Bible. And that story was about a very young man who was a very brave young man. And the entire Israeli army, and we've heard a lot about Israel lately, but the entire Israeli army was not willing to go and fight the Philistine army. And they had one 9-foot something individual in their camp that was named Goliath. a name we're probably all very familiar with. And Goliath was probably the largest man they had, and he was ruthless. Do you know what that's like to live with someone who's ruthless, brash? I do. And I will tell you, they can be extremely intimidating to the point that you feel like if you do not do everything they tell you to do, then you may lose your very life or maybe your children's lives. In this story, I'm going to connect my life, and I will tell you, just like Goliath, who said, and I have it written down here, he said, "Am I a dog that you come at me with a stick?" And he cursed David, because David, even though he was a teenager, everybody else was scared to fight him. David said, no, I'll go. And you may feel like that little David. I know I did. And that was when I got out. But before I felt like David, I felt like the rest of the Israeli camp. No, I'm not dare going to fight the Philistines. But you may be fighting someone in your home right now that you say there's no way I can win. They have maybe told you you're going to lose your children, that if you tell anyone, you will be seen as crazy. If you tell anyone or you leave, that they will come after you. And maybe they've threatened to harm you. Multiple times my ex threatened to bring me or my children harm, even to annihilate us. And I'm talking about the K word. Multiple times. And I was afraid. I was so afraid because I had seen him rage in front of us time and time again and threaten us, run us into rooms in our homes and lock us in, and then sit on the other side of the door we were in and laugh. Well, that's what Goliath did. He was laughing at this little, guy that the Israelites had sent over to fight him. The biggest guy they had. I mean, I can't imagine. David, maybe he was 4 foot something. He couldn't have been very tall, probably. And there's this massive giant who's slaughtering all kinds of, it says here that he cursed David by the names of his gods, little g. He said, "Come over here," Goliath said, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." Threats of death. That's what we experience many times. And it's not okay. And I'm telling you that even though he threatens you, you can have that warrior attitude. Now I want to tell you, don't face him with the warrior attitude. Because if he's a raging man or woman, you're going to enrage them even more. Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. You do your planning. You take your escape quietly and in silence. Don't let him know what you're doing. Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Protect yourself. Make a plan. Find someone that you can trust that's not going to talk to your abuser and that will help you escape. So David comes, and we're here, and I'm going to read it to you out of 1 Samuel 45. It's the 17th chapter. And it says, "Then David said to the Philistine, 'You come to me with sword, with a spear, with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied.'" That's the attitude I want you to take today. That's the attitude you need to defeat your Goliath. And he says this, David, This day, the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you, and I will take your head from you. And this day I will give you the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Hallelujah. And I am telling you, you will come out on top if you have that kind of faith. You know, David had not conquered his Goliath yet. David had not seen his victory yet, but by faith, so shall it be. He overcame the enemy by faith. And I'm telling you, the enemy is a deceiver. You know what? If you're not dead yet, and you're not if you're watching me, why hadn't Satan already killed you? Why hadn't Satan, through whomever he's using in your life, taking you down, taking you out? He may have tried, but you're still alive. And I'm telling you, he's trying to trick you that he has any real power, which is why you need to not listen to all his jesting and all of his criticism and all of his threats. And you need to make a plan, and you need to get out while you can, because you are a warrior. You have the ability to come up with your own plan and make a way of escape with faith. And according to your faith, so shall it be. What do you need and want? I want you to go to the Lord. I want you to trust in him. And I want you to make a way. Put your feet to your faith and your faith to your feet. Because you have a life to live. And so many want you living it. And if you have little ones, they need you. They need you living this life. They need you. They don't need to be in an abusive environment. And then 49. So 1 Samuel 17:49 says, Then David put his hand in his bag. He had 5 stones, and he took out a stone. And he slung it and struck the Philistine in his forehead. This is the only place in his armor where it was visible to his body. He was covered in armor, covered. And he struck that one little place right there. So the stone, it sank down into his forehead, and Goliath fell to the face of the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and he struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Remember, he went with a sling and 5 stones. That was all he had. Can you imagine? No armor. You got a little sling and 5 little rocks. And this massive guy with tons of armor, big sword, and he's ready to hack you to pieces. And no one's going to help you. You got no. If you go out there and you decide to defeat this guy, you're by yourself. But wait a minute. He had a secret weapon. And he's the one that went before him in battle, and that was God. That was God. And he says here, the Lord of hosts. And it says right here, let me finish. It says, therefore David ran. So he goes down. He's got this in his head. He goes down. He ran and stood over the Philistine. Can you imagine finally putting you're standing over your enemy, and you've got one foot on his chest, and you're just looking up and saying, aha. Well, that's what he did. And so he took the sword. He reached down. He took Goliath's sword, and he drew it out of his sheath. And when he did, he killed him by cutting off his head. And when the Philistines saw that, their champion was dead, they fled. They fled. And you may be in a family of people where your narcissist has tons of family and supporters. And you know that whatever he or she tells them, they're going to back that narcissist. They're going to back the abuser, even though they know you may not have gone directly to them and said, you know what, I'm being abused by your son. I'm being abused by your cousin. I'm being abused. I don't know why he or she does this. They don't care. They're not going to get involved. They're not going to put their neck out there. They're going to support him, even if it's in secret, and they're going to keep quiet. They don't want to look bad. I don't know anything, hear no evil, see no evil. They're going to stay away. So he's got lots of backers, lots of supporters, David, this little teenager, goes out. He's got no support from the Israeli camp, and he's got this entire Philistine army and this massive giant staring him in the face, saying he's going to, feed him to the animals. And what did he say? Yeah, Saul actually says, I am the Philistine champion. Oh, he's a big guy. But you are only the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. Saul was, he was the one that God appointed, because the Israelis were whining. The Israelites were whining about not having a leader, and Saul ended up being an extremely poor leader if you read through that. But the point of it is, your abuser may have all kinds of backers. Who cares? You have the God of Israel. You have the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, the great I am. And he loves you, and he is fighting for you. The battle, remember this, is the Lord's. And he goes before you. You are not alone. So join this channel, hear my stories, and learn how I got out, and learn how you can hopefully get out well before I did. Because not only did I come out of a parental home of abuse, I went right into a marital home of abuse that lasted 27 plus years. And I want to see you avoid that, and your children if you have children. So I love you. Join the Warrior Life, and know that you are more than an overcomer in him. Take on your Goliath. Make a plan, create a strategy, and put your faith and your feet together, and know that God is going before you. Bye-bye.